YouTubers, this is Joe from ArtAlienTV. Another game of interplanetary I Spy going on here. Back to Mars, back to Gale Crater, and today we are looking at Sol 703. I've just been working on this Gigapan pretty much all day yesterday and until about 4 o'clock this morning, and also a couple of hours today. Mainly getting all these links sorted out and stuff, and there's a lot to see here. But I'm not going to show you all of it today. I'm just going to show you the main things that we've got, the larger objects. There's loads of little things in here that I'm going to leave for you guys and girls out there to find, because basically there's too much to cover in one video, and if I did, I'd be here all day basically. There's so many fragments and fossils and skulls and bits and pieces lying around, and this is one of the ones that was made famous back in 2014 when I sent this image to my press agent back then, and she then sent it to the press, and then they printed it, and it was in the papers all over the world. Became quite famous, and was one of the reasons why I was asked to go on Ancient Aliens. Not the only one, but one of the top finds from that era. And basically what we have here is the Mars tank, or SPG. This has been called a sort of SPG or cannon or whatever since then. I think the press called it a cannon or rocket launcher or something like that. It's not a rocket launcher, but who knows? We don't really know. I mean, when I first saw it, basically I think initially, if I remember rightly, if you check these links here, it will tell you on some of these, it will link to the original videos I did of it, and it would also say that it was initially found by Rami Bar Ilan, a great researcher actually, and he found quite a few things back then, which everyone else sort of jumped on really. I made the find famous, but I never claimed to have found it, even though it may have said that in the press. I did credit him from the very start, but often the press leave these things out and change things around without your permission. But there we are. But some of these will link to the original videos, and in the description of the videos there will be a newspaper article for you to read as well, and you can link to that as well. Okay. But basically I'll show you where to look. It's right at the back here. Now this is a long way off. I would say this is about probably 150 feet away from the rover, possibly a bit more. I don't know exactly. We got the rover is up back here where we're sat, looking down from quite high up on this kind of ridge here, which slopes down. There's a whole bunch of things around here, and the SPG is right back here, and it looks very small. Why does it look small? Because it is small, but it's also a long way off, and it's probably only about 3 feet in height, possibly only 2.5. It could be 3.5 or 4. I don't think anyone's actually been able to come up with an ideal measurement for this, but I would say it's probably around 3 feet in height on the barrel there, from there to there. It's just a long way away, and it's kind of adjacent to this ridge here at the back. And this thing, incidentally, when you look at it, is pointing towards Mount Sharp. Now why would it be doing that? Now I have covered this in other videos, so a lot of you may have seen this already, but these are new enhancements I've got here, and what I tried to do is be a little bit more gentle with it, and not go in too hard, and not distort the image. Now what happens with these JPEGs, if you sharpen them too much, they all start to break up, and the shape gets very jagged and distorted around the edges. I've not done that this time. I was a lot more careful, and you can actually see what looks a bit like a turret here, a very wide barrel, a chunky body, and if you look really carefully and squint a little bit, you can actually see what seem to be tracks or wheels or something along the side here, right? Now I did think initially when I first looked at it that this might be something else, but having found lots of similar things now, and other people have that I've shown as well, I've shown a whole bunch of tanks and vehicle type things like this, having found a few and shown quite a few, I now do think this is probably an actual SPG or gun emplacement or something like that. and you can even see structures next to it. So check all the links out with that. I won't go on and on about it. There's lots of extra information here about it, and there's links to playlists and all sorts of other things which are related, which also talk about it. So you can go on those if you want more information. Okay, it is quite small, but a lot of these tanks and things are on Mars. They're about 1/3 size, or perhaps even a quarter size of ours on Earth. So there we are. There was also this thing. Now this thing I called the Cradle pod. I did a video on this back in 2014 also. I don't think I discovered this either. I think it was Olympus Sky that first put this up as a video on YouTube, and a few other people did videos of it almost like the same day, I think. And it looks a bit like this in shape. I'm not saying it is one of these, but incidentally this is from Planet of the Apes, and it's quite prophetic, this stereo image I've done here. Well, comparative image. Because I didn't know back then that I would find so many apes and similar things on the surface, and it turned out that they're all over the place, and there is one in this image as well, which I'm going to show you now. But take notice of this central white column in there, in this thing here. You can see it quite clearly there. It's very straight. So this is an artificial object. Don't know what it is. This is only here for comparison, shape-wise. I don't really know what it is at all. I don't think anyone does. And it really stands out, even in the Gigapan up here. It's up here. You can really see that quite clearly. It's a little bit dark on here. When you do these big images, what happens is the software stretches the brightness to match them up, and you always tend to get a bit darker on the right hand side and too light on the left side. But if you want to link to the original images, there's a link here. Follow the Caltech link there. That will take you to the original image set, and you can download these as separate little images, which may be easier for you, and they won't screw up your graphics card like this thing is trying to do now. Okay, so the next thing to look at is, I think, this ghostly statue. Really, really cool, this. One of my favourite finds, this, with a beveled edge. Now, some people said it looks like a head. I don't think it is. I think it's carved, because you would not have a beveled edge on an actual specimen like this. So this is carved and shaped, possibly made of clay. It may not have been carved, it may have been moulded in clay by hand, and tools used to kind of shave it down and shape it. Who knows? There do seem to be a lot of clay figurines and things around on the ground, and this may be made of clay, but it may be actual stonework where it's been carved and chipped away and then rubbed down and smoothed out a bit. But we got some interesting eye detail, teeth here, nose obviously, quite chubby cheeks like a Buddha almost, and a beveled edge like a gravestone here. And you can see it up here, just here, and it's got a very strange thing next to it as well. There it is. Now this is stretched a tiny bit. When the Gigapan software put all the images together, it's kind of squashed and stretched the images to make them fit together slightly. Okay, so this is slightly distorted in shape, but you can see it's there. You can see that beveled edge and face details there. And we've got this weird heart-shaped rock here. I don't know what that is, but it seems to be joined with something kind of going around it like this. It's very, very weird. But follow the links and it will take you to the original video, and it goes into a lot more detail there. So this one was also an interesting one. This is a much more recent find. I didn't find this until 2018. This is a gorilla skull, and I don't really see what else it can possibly be. It's not exactly the same as some of ours on Earth. It's not huge. This is about 5 inches across, whereas I think sort of lowland gorillas like this, skulls would be more like 10. So it's not that big. This may even be 4.5 or 5 inches. This one would be more like 10 across, and they have slightly bigger features on the Earth types. But there are different types of gorillas down here on Earth, and I'm sure there are different types on Mars as well. They're not all going to be the same. There'd be different species. Some would be larger, some smaller. There'd probably be highland, or some that live near the northern areas, and some that live near the equator like this, which may be smaller. We don't know. And as if to magnify that point, there's this one. Now, I didn't find this. I don't know who found it initially, but I did do some very careful analysis on this, and you can follow these links to this video. This is a gorilla, but facially it's very different from this one on the right. This is very similar to this one in facial morphology. You can see the brow ridges here. Let me zoom in a bit. The brow ridge here matches this. The nose also matches here, very similar. And the mouth shape, the snout shape here, but you've got teeth coming down here. It's very vague. Some of this is fossilized, and the possible ear detail would have been here, but what we're seeing here is the jawbone coming down. You can see the joints here, okay, and the facial bones match up in shape and sort of scale as well. Very, very similar. The nose, the snout is slightly longer, almost like a baboon. So this may be a sort of cross species. And as if to magnify that point, I've got another one here. Now, this one was found in 2017. This is from Sol 51. Very early Sol, this one. And this is more like a baboon, but with a shorter snout. Here. See that? And if you look at the mouth detail, you've got teeth in there, you've got lip detail, got eye detail, ear, what looks like hair. Scruffy hair, shorter snout than the baboon example here, but similar small little beady eyes, right? Or at least one you can see there, can't quite see the other. Just about make out the edge of it there. Interesting. So there are loads of examples of these. There's about 25 I've found so far. Chimpanzees, baboons, gorillas, apes of all different sizes, some of them very, very small. Lots of them are very, very small. This isn't very big. I would say this is about the same size as this gorilla here, and may even be a very similar species. But basically, the brow ridges on this are much more pronounced, like the gorilla here. And this one has quite small brow ridges. So it's not a gorilla, or it may be some other type of ape, or may not even be an ape. But it looks, to me, in the snout area and the ear detail, looks very ape-like. So it may be some kind of baboon or similar creature. Okay? But what was interesting about this gorilla is the fact that it's got a very grey or light-coloured face and head, with a very, very, very dark legs, and probably a brownish colour to the back of it, but we don't really know what the colour is because the image was taken in black and white. But what we do know about this is that the facial details do not match any known species of gorilla on Earth, and are very different. It's got quite heavy brow ridges, but the nose is very short. In other words, the snout doesn't stick out very far. So this is a bit more like one of these here, with a kind of stubby, shorter snout area, unlike this baboon. But body-wise, now a lot of people said that this is fake. It's not. It's in the image. Okay, the image has been downgraded quite a lot, and there's lots of distortion in the image from NASA. Why they ever downgraded such low-res images to start with, I really don't know. They over-compressed them quite aggressively, and there's lots of distortion and not a lot of detail. But this is probably a few feet tall, so there is some detail here, and it's very black. And you don't get black objects on the surface of Mars, really. You get shadows, which are dark, but this is black. So this thing must have black hair or fur on it for it to go like this, because there's no light reflection or anything being picked up on this part of the image here at all, which says to me that it's actually coloured black. And because it's a dark, low quality image, there's no data here because there's nothing for the camera to see apart from blackness. Okay, so that just comes out as a void almost. Okay, that's zero data here. So the weird thing is about this, you can actually see eye detail in there, bridge detail, nose detail. Can't really see the mouth, and the mouth and snout area looks quite small and narrow, and doesn't really match up in morphology to what you would think of as a gorilla, who have quite pronounced and large snouts and chunky sort of facial features, okay, robust facial features. So there's discrepancy here in that detail, which means that this is a different species altogether. But this is a different part of Mars. This was taken by the Spirit rover, and it's thousands of miles away from where we are in Gale Crater here. So it would make sense that if there are gorillas and apes on Mars, which there are or were, it would make sense that there would be differences in the sort of facial morphology and size and colour and everything else, because this may be a completely different species on a different part of Mars. Different terrain. This is up higher. This is what I would call a lowland gorilla on Earth. This is a lowland gorilla, by the way. Highland gorillas have got much thicker, longer hair. And this is bound to be a lowland gorilla because we're in the bottom of a crater. So it's about as low land as you can get. We're about 3 miles down below the surface. This is 3 miles above on the surface, about 1,000 miles away, or 2, where the Spirit rover is, or was, I should say. It's still there, but it's conked out, of course. So different species, but maybe related. So there we are. So that was about it really for those. As I said, click on these links and it will take you to all sorts of videos and clips and images and playlists and everything else. And there's loads of information I've written up here. Now, as always, I do have quite considerable information underneath each video on YouTube. So you can always look at the descriptions on there, and it will link you to the original image sets and everything, and links to various stories and other articles and images and stuff from Wikipedia, that kind of stuff. But as for the tank, let's go back to the tank very briefly before we go. I do have an image up here of an SPG, right? Now, take notice on this image of this part of the barrel here. But it's a bit clearer on here, you can see it here, right? So what that does basically is it lowers the pressure in front of the shell as the pressure behind the shell builds up very rapidly indeed in a millisecond. And that gives the shell greater velocity and accuracy and longer range as well. But not all of them have it. It depends on what type of gun it is, what type of barrel it is. Some have a smooth bore, some have these, a lot of them have diffusers on the end, okay? And what that does, it also helps diffuse a lot of the energy and it helps the gun stay stable during firing and makes it more accurate. You can see one here. If you look really carefully, you can see a reflection just there. There is one on here. It's like a thicker sleeve part to the barrel. And there's also a thicker part at this end. You can see the shadow here, like you would get on here. You've got a thicker part here, and it goes narrower. Then we got a fatter part in the middle, near the middle, towards the end, and then we have a diffuser on the end. So it does look like a cannon or something very similar, because we have different parts to it. Now, this may be very vague, of course. Let's go in a bit closer. You can see that reflection there, and there's a darker bit here. So there's something going on with this barrel. It's not just a straight pole or tube. It has different parts to it, just like we have on here. Now, that's very specific detail. I know we can't see a lot of it, but that says to me that what we're looking at is a cannon, because that just simply wouldn't happen on a Hoover or a lawnmower or something like that. This is very wide also, relative to the actual body size of this thing. It's a very wide, large caliber gun in comparison. Okay, so those are very specific details that you do not get on rocks. Absolutely no way. And anyone who says that you do is talking absolute garbage, especially when you have rectangular structures next to it like we have here, which you can see a little bit better if you zoom out a bit. Just here, see that? So that was an interesting one. So do check all these. I do have this image up here where of that composite, just for a bit more clarity without all the annotations on. And if you come along to ArtAlienTV Mars magazine, there is a link in the description. You can download this if you like. I'll put a high quality JPEG up there, totally uncompressed JPEG, up on there for you, and you can come along and download it for free. It goes to show that Gale Crater, at least on Mars, was quite a diverse place with diverse creatures and cultures, carving things and making things, and technology, but also weaponry. And it doesn't look like it ended very well for them in that respect. Okay, so thanks for watching, everybody, and as I always say, an open mind is required when viewing objects from other planets, because one day our very survival may depend on it. Okay, thanks for watching. Please share on social media. See you soon.